Hello, this is the Opti-Sand EasySand 224 pedestal sander. It's designed to sand various parts with different types of abrasives. There are two spindles. Each spindle is 24 inches long. It's a 300 millimeter diameter spindle. You can go forward or reverse with each of the spindles. There's forward and reverse on the control panel. But we've basically designed it to allow an operator easy access to the sanding area to work small and large parts. Parts like moldings, cabinet doors, and so forth. There's a very simple control panel here in the middle. It has an on-off button to start and stop the spindles. Forward and reverse switch so that you can have double-sided abrasives if you like, and use one grit on one side and a different grit on the other side. Little rotary knob in the middle to give you control over the spindle speeds, so you can go from 60 to 600, 400 RPM. And again, the raise and lowering switch, which is right here, which is disabled. We've disabled it because it was damaged. This machine was at the Grand Rapids show and it got damaged while it was being returned, and I wanted to make this video for you. As you can see, there are two spindles here. These are adjustable dust hoods. You can swivel them basically all the way around so that you can position them to be efficient to collect the dust, but yet not be in the way. Okay, what I'm going to do now is grab a couple of samples and we'll do some test sanding and show you how it would operate. Okay, I've got a couple of samples together. Forgive the cord here from the microphone. I don't have a remote microphone, and I did want to have a little bit of a sound here with it. But the idea here is, let's say we have a smaller piece of trim that we want to sand. We'll start the motor up. We'll select the RPM that we need. There's a scale on here to give you an indication of where you're at, so you can always repeat once you find a speed that works for you, you can always repeat it. And there we are. We sanded this. We removed all the fibers from the surface. We can remove, if you want to go coarse enough, depends on what you want to do. For sanding moldings, to remove knife marks, cutter marks, you're probably going to go down to maybe as coarse as 120 grit, could be 150. What's on here right now is a 280 grit, and it's good for doing what we're doing here, which is just the finish sanding prior to going into the finish room, and for sealer sanding in between coats, because it does remove all the fibers. If you wanted something like a coarser 120 grit, and yet wanted to have a different grit, a 180 or 220 for doing the finish sanding, give you a smooth surface. Again, we can either have double-sided abrasives, so we can have up to 4 different abrasives here on this machine at one time, or you can put maybe the 120 here and 180 or 220 here, or vice versa. Next, I'll show you an example of a cabinet door, sanding of a cabinet door. Basically, what you're going to do is, again, putting enough pressure to get the abrasives down into the profile. You'll run it halfway on each side, turn the door about 45 degrees, and go back and sand the other half of the door. Gets down into the profile, smooths out the profile. You can feel it's nice and smooth down in here, and if you need a little extra work on the edges, either straight across, or what's a little more effective on edges is if you come across in a slight angle. So then it really gets the edges nice and smooth and sands them a little bit better because you're going across the abrasive. A longer piece of trim I got here. Now again, it's a little difficult for me here because I got this stupid cord attached to me, but you can take a longer piece of trim, again, running it the same way, or perhaps even have 2 people working on it if you wanted, and There's no dust collection system hooked on this right now. That's why the dust is going into the air. Again, it cleans up the surface. It got down in all the profiles. What you want to do is use as slow an RPM as you can. You can see I'm going relatively slow. I can put my hand on there without a problem, and use more pressure to get the sanding results that you want. You get better results, and you get longer abrasive life. Now what you can do with the EasySand 224 is you can put a powered conveyor underneath here, or even put a little table underneath here if you want. You'd swivel the hoods up out of the way where they're up here, and then you could actually turn this into a feed-through type machine up to for parts up to 24 inches wide.